All right, so we want to welcome you from kindergarten to high school to everybody's favorite topic, classroom management. All right, so when I started out 11 years ago at Chelsea High School as a 22-year-old teacher, if you would have told me that classroom management would have been something that I grabbed onto and became successful with, I would have thought you were kidding. This is who I am. Never had a detention in high school, never skipped a class without a field trip form. I am shocked and appalled still sometimes by behavior that happens in my classroom. But doing this process and doing this PD has really helped me uncover that it's not about what I originally thought it was.
Similarly, I didn't understand what classroom management was because I was just doing it. I was a middle school history teacher in Chelsea for 5 years, and I was surviving, and I was learning how to manage a classroom. I didn't realize how much I was just leveraging my personality, and I didn't know what it was that I was doing, and I couldn't explain it to anyone else until I became an instructional coach, and even until I designed this PD with Christina. I was really just trying to get by on being charming, I guess.
All right, so we know that urban ed has a huge problem with teacher turnover. We know that's a reality that we face, that we work with, and that we try and get through every single year. But one of the things that we know is that classroom management is often at the top of the list for why teachers choose to either go to a different school or leave the profession altogether within their first 5 years. And this year, with all of our new teachers at Chelsea High School, I'm looking at my data and I realize there's a huge diversity of need for the new teachers. About half of them are brand new to the profession. Half of them had extensive experience. We're talking 6 to 20 years of experience in the classroom. And then there was a small group that had never had any kind of professional teaching experience at all. So we decided to try and figure out what was going to be helpful to them, what was going to help them survive and thrive in the classroom.
Oh, sorry, got ahead of myself.
Go back.
I know, I'm back.
All right, so we decided to go after the data. My building principal agreed to come on instructional walks with me, and we hit 90% of new teacher classrooms for 10 to 15 minutes going in with open eyes. We didn't have any agenda, we didn't have anything we were looking for. We wanted to go in non-judgmentally and just see what the needs of our teachers were. And so once we went in there, no surprise, the biggest need was classroom management. But we had the data now and we had the observations to know what it was about the classroom management that was really necessary. Before these learning walks, we'd been in a space where I didn't know what to do, the new teachers didn't know what to ask for, they were just struggling to survive, and we were in this space where we really didn't have clear communication about how to best support them.
So the support that we ended up developing was a professional development series. We initially designed 2, we're possibly doing a 3rd, PD sessions that would happen after school for new staff. The learning walks helped Christina realize that these teachers didn't need more strategies. These teachers had a lot of strategies. There's a lot of coaching happening at Chelsea High School. What was missing was a framework in which to put these strategies. They needed to figure out how it all fit together. We decided to root this PD in helping teachers understand the framework of selecting the appropriate strategy from their toolbox at the appropriate time. Management is not simply about creating rules. It's about adjusting practice to meet the needs of your students after working to find out who they really are. So when we researched and we went through and we tried to find a definition for classroom management, all the best ones we found were in psychological journals or psychological research. They were not in ed journals. This was significant and really exciting, and it was a big aha moment for Christina and myself. We realized that our PD needed to be about human behavior. It needed to be about psychology. Again, it's more than the rules. It's about awareness of yourself and seeking awareness of your students. So we decided to provide kind of three or four, I'm going to go through 3 right now, key ideas to keep in mind about yourself managing a classroom. We don't get to have emotional reactions in front of students. We get to have them later, and we have to have them later. but we don't get to have them in the moment. It was really important to get that across to the new staff. Another good cartoon. Researching this was a lot of fun. The second piece that we had to make extremely clear was that student behavior is very, very rarely about you. We'd like to think it's about us, but most of the time it is not. It's very rarely about something you have done. And the third piece that you need to get across is that there's no such thing as winning in an argument with a 16-year-old in front of other 16-year-olds. It is an impossible situation, and there is no winning. The goal is not to win an argument or to maintain some sort of power dynamic. The goal is to cultivate a safe learning environment.
All right, so you're aware of this, how you are supposed to comport yourself in this environment. You start to try and make sure that you're doing everything right. But there's still a whole other piece, and that piece is sitting in front of you. So I started teaching when I was 22. I had a student in my class who was 21 years old, had a 2-year-old kid, and a job. I could have met this person out in a bar and he would be an adult in the rest of the world. And yet he's sitting in my freshman world history class. Sometimes, and quite often, we are not the only adult sitting in our classrooms. We are the teacher of record, but we are not the only adult. So one of the strategies that we did give our teachers at this PD was tools on how to figure out who's sitting in front of you. I have surveyed my students at the beginning of every school year since I started teaching. And knowing who's sitting in front of me has helped me react to what's going on in the room. So these answers are the most poignant answers that I received from my third period, first semester US 2 class. These are 16 and 17-year-olds. Question was, how many hours do you work a week? Raise your hand if you work 20 to 30 hours outside of your teaching job. We got a couple, right? But my kids work quite a bit outside of school. Think about when you were 16, 17, if you had a job. Were you responsible for contributing financially to your household? And the pressure that that puts on you? And emotionally, taking care of other people. When I polled my kids on this question, I also asked them who they were responsible for taking care of. And I had a couple who said, my own child, my grandfather, my younger sibling. One kid, I love this one, said, I take care of myself. But all of these answers change what I see as the behavior that is in my classroom. When I see a student with their head down, I know that this student has worked the 4 to 7 a.m. shift at the airport before coming to school. So when that head is down, that student is exhausted, and with good reason. I know that when my student walks in 25 to 35 minutes late to class, that she was dropping her daughter off at daycare. So all of this is empowering. If we know who's sitting in front of us, and we know that they are adults outside in the real world, when they come in my classroom, who am I to say, sit down, pick up your pencil, go do this, I need you to turn in your homework. Where's all of your stuff for today? All of those are valid and good things, but they may not be realistically at the top of the priority list for some of my students. And it's my job to know that and help them get there instead of shutting them down and just giving consequences for what is happening. And as we were doing this PD, this kind of information was what helped our teachers get that framework of what they were working so hard and so diligently to try and get done in their classrooms with classroom management. They were able to finally put it into a framework that allowed them to know what they were walking into. So, knowledge is power. It helps you better understand your classroom. It helps us better have relationships with our students rather than a reactive classroom management setting.
The survey allows us as teachers to develop constructive empathy for our students, not misplaced compassion. It allows for much more effective interventions to influence or redirect misbehaviors and to depersonalize student behavior. Again, it's not about us.
Yep. We can validate and affirm what our students have been through, but we do need to help them get to where they need to be, and that information is what helps us do that. Classroom management is all about awareness.
This is the mindset shift.
It's awareness of yourself and seeking awareness of those who are sitting in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you.